Hello everyone and welcome to Technology Tuesday hosted by Out of the Box Technology. We are excited to bring you these free webinars that feature third-party apps, tips and tricks from in and outside of QuickBooks, and hot topics that our industry is encountering. My name is Jennifer Darachuk and I will be your moderator today. I work in business development and customer relations here at Out of the Box Technology, and I'm happy to be the moderator for all of your Technology Tuesday presentations this year. A little bit about Out of the Box Technology, if you're not familiar. We focus on QuickBooks training, integration, hosting, and support. We also have a full team of consultants that focus on bookkeeping services. And we have our own development team as well that does website design, custom app development, and data migrations. We have two products that we're really excited about. One is our event app that becomes your event app as soon as you sign up, and we can customize it to your events, taking registrations, uploading photos from the event, all of the different events within your event. It's a really great product. And of course, Recur 360, one that we're really proud of. It's the advanced solution for invoices, payments, and collections. But now I would like to hand it over to today's presenter. I am happy to welcome Bradley Martin from Kindful, and he's going to talk to us today about optimizing your nonprofit's donor life. So at this time, Bradley, I will hand things over to you.
Hey, thanks, Jennifer, and we really appreciate you having us. I'm going to share my screen here. I actually don't know if let me switch over to my, Jennifer, can you confirm? There we go. Looks like we're showing the right.
Perfect.
So I have two screens up and that gets a little tricky. So thanks for having us and featuring us on the webinar today. So again, my name is Bradley Martin. I lead the sales and marketing efforts here at Kindful. And if you're not familiar with Kindful, Kindful is a donor management system, and we focus on working with nonprofits to help make donor management and data management easier. And so today, I do love talking about this topic. What we're going to be able to cover is optimizing your donor lifecycle. And so we'll jump right in. So first off, let's cover what the donor lifecycle actually is. And so the donor lifecycle is the levels of engagement your donors or supporters go through as they deepen their relationship with your nonprofit. And so it's really made up of three key areas. One is acquisition, two is retention, and the third is upgrades. And so one of the things we find in the nonprofit market is that many of our other providers and many consultants focus primarily on retention as the key metric for managing a donor lifecycle. And what we really encourage people to do is you have to be careful to also focus on acquisition and upgrades, and we'll go into much more detail about why. But you really need to focus to create the most healthy donor lifecycle and in return raise the most funds. You really have to focus on all three aspects of the donor lifecycle. And so a while back, we did a poll that was really great, and we asked how confident our nonprofit employees were at tracking all three stages of the donor lifecycle. And what we found was that many of them, the biggest portion of them, are tracking just one or two parts of the lifecycle. And when we really dug into that with nonprofit professionals, what we found was that, again, it really went back to retention, which we would agree is incredibly important to track. But that was the big key area of what they were actually tracking. And so going a little bit deeper, this is a more traditional view of how people view the donor life cycle. And so again, as we refer to it as a cycle, it does make sense. And I can see where people would go with this idea that it is circular. And really typically what we see out there in the market is people talking about it on an annual basis. So you have one major event every year, a couple different appeals, things like that. But there is some things that are, a concern when you look at the life cycle or your donor's journey this way. And that is that really each donor shouldn't be considered on just an annual rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. That's a great way to get donor attrition in your database when they're just getting the same messages over and over and over again. We find many nonprofits fall into this. So if you shouldn't look at it this way, then how should you look at it? And what we would suggest is that you should really look at it more as a path or a journey, right? And so consider that along a donor journey, you'll find that people are, you're going to acquire new contacts that may even not be a donor yet. And if someone's at that stage, you really want to figure out what's the right messaging and the right time, and have technology that helps you understand that they're actually at that point of the donor life cycle. And then as they move on through, they actually become a donor, then you want to really make sure you're focusing on retention. And after they've given to you many times, now how can you upgrade them, right? And so you really want to make sure that you're sending the right message to the right person at the right time, and understanding where they are in the donor life cycle is step one to ensuring that you're creating the right ask. And so not only should you be tracking just one key life cycle report or life cycle journey, we would suggest that you also want to break those out into maybe 2 to 5 key journeys. And so if you're a nonprofit that has the ability to do wealth screening, you may find that you want to put someone in more of a major giver opportunity life cycle and ask based on the fact that they have the means to give more, right? Or you may have some volunteers that you do want to ask to become donors, but maybe the ultimate goal for your volunteers aren't necessarily for them to be donors, but it's for them to be an advocate for your organization. And so you can really help move people through a cycle that gets them to volunteer once, maybe be someone who volunteers on an ongoing basis, and then ultimately someone who either gives to your organization or shares your organization with other people and recruits more volunteers. So what's the key benefits of tracking the donor life cycle? Number one, it's the ability to be more targeted in your messaging and yielding a greater ROI. So I've already hit on this a little bit throughout the first couple slides, but by being able to understand where someone is, you can make sure that you're asking them the right thing. And if you're keeping them on the proper actual donor lifecycle journey, like a major giver versus volunteer, you can ensure that maybe you don't do a major appeal to someone who is someone who doesn't have the means. Imagine you have a bunch of college students who are who are volunteers. It may turn them off a little bit if you're asking them to give an end of the year gift of $10,000, right? Versus you may, by grouping everyone together, you may not ask your major donors for enough, or your people who have the potential to be major donors. So that leads into finding it easier to identify the why in your appeals and messaging. So one of the things we hear from nonprofits over and over again is, how do I ask someone to give me money, right? And many people get into actually owning or having a nonprofit or founding a nonprofit, not because they're interested in asking a bunch of people for money, but instead because they really want to do good to the population that they are looking to serve, which makes complete sense. But when you really start to put people in a donor life cycle, it becomes really easy and natural to find the why in your messaging. And so really, when you're reaching out and you're sending an appeal, it becomes much easier if you can designate that this group of people fit this criteria and segment them in a way to say, I know that they're only have given once, and my ultimate goal is to remind them that they gave, how much their gift helped our organization, and then asking them to give again. That's a really easy message to write versus just trying to write one broad ask. Lastly, ultimately what this does is it creates greater trust with your constituents, leading to less attrition, right? If you're sending very messaging that is relevant to what they're interested in, if you run multiple programs, things like that, if you're making sure that you're segmenting people right and making sure you understand where they are in the donor life cycle, it really starts to build trust and really helps your donors get the feeling that you really understand where they are and how they're interacting with your organization. So this is something a little bit fun. Like we've talked about all this stuff, right? And how we have these nice linear paths, right? This is what the donor lifecycle actually really looks like. It's more like a game of chutes and ladders, right? And what we find is that you start down here and you have someone who becomes aware. So they start down at the 1 and they're moving their way up. And then there's all the slides where they can slide down. And so it's not as easy, and we understand it's not as easy as just being able to say, here's a linear path everyone's going to follow. Because that's not the case. That's not real life. Ultimately, they're going to donate. They may repeat a couple times, and then they actually churn out, right? Or they're a recurring giver who actually churns, and so or lapses. And so really the thing that we're wanting to focus on here is helping you identify some key areas in your donor journey that you can take action on. And ultimately, helping you find when people fall out of those key areas as well is very, very important. And so now we're going to dive right into talking about the 3 main areas of the donor lifecycle and starting to review some of those and some specifics about those. So acquisition. So what exactly is acquisition? We define donor acquisition as it being the act of obtaining new donors or contacts through fundraising and marketing efforts. So really it is going out and adding new contacts or new constituents, whether they've given yet or not, to your database. And so a couple key metrics that are interesting about donor acquisition. So a couple that stood out to me when really reviewing this was on average, at the top left, you'll see on average 1.1% of website visitors should join your email list. So if you're not giving people an easy way to sign up on your website for becoming a subscriber to what you're doing, I would highly suggest that. And so and what this is stating, right, is that for every 100 people that view your website, you could expect 1 person to sign up to become a donor, or not a donor, sorry, a subscriber, someone who wants to learn more about your organization. Secondly, even more impressive is that 1.2% of the website visitors should donate. So again, if you don't have a clear and easy way for someone to donate on your website, you're really missing out, because for every 100 people you drive there, you can expect a little over 1 of them to actually give you a donation. And then I'm going to jump over to the bottom right. The average conversion rate for fundraising emails is only 0.04%. And so again, the way you can affect that and bring that up is making sure you're sending very, very relevant messaging. So a couple key strategies here, right? So number 1, ensure your website has an easy way to both donate and to sign up without donating. Either that's email newsletter, downloadable guide, sign a petition, something like that. The way we like to refer to this is, you kind of want to ask every person who comes to your website to marry you, right? That's the donation. But if they're not willing to marry you, just ask them on a date, right? So give them an email newsletter, something to sign up. You may have a better ability to get their information that way. And if you're putting any effort at all into sending people to your website, you know that it can be expensive to get traffic there. So even if they don't do your ultimate task or your ultimate call to action, let's try to get them to do something so that now you can market to them more specifically. So 2, consider adding all your constituents to your database, even if they haven't given yet. So this is something we also find that happens a lot, is that we are a database, we're a donor management system, and so as people are adding in contacts, they oftentimes will leave out people who've yet to donate. And we find this sometimes surprising, we would suggest that really the size of your database is very important and can help predict how well you're going to gain new donors in the future. And so we would say that if you have a good database that can help you understand how people are interacting, what programs they're interested in, if you did have a downloadable newsletter or a downloadable guide, even the simple things of if they sign up for your email newsletter and you send out information about a couple different programs you have, you may be able to spot individuals who are interested in a specific program that you, and so when you send the next ask, you can ask them specifically for something around that program. 3, use crowdfunding, peer-to-peer, or advocate strategies to take advantage of your current constituents' networks. So, obviously, most all people now are on some form of social media, and I think one of the things that we found is a great acquisition strategy is using their network. I'm sure if you're on Facebook, you've probably seen the new people really taking the opportunity to say, hey, instead of wishing me happy birthday, instead donate to this cause. Those are great strategies to help get your network to expand your brand and get more information out there about your organization. So let's jump over to retention. So what is retention, right? Donor retention is the act of preventing donors from lapsing in their gift giving, typically from one year to the next. And so I will say here real quick, and I may mention this in a couple slides too, the donor retention, it's really important. Most nonprofits we work with understand what a LIBUNT report is. People have given last year, but not this year. We would highly recommend that you make sure you're looking at things on a rolling 12 months. And so a LIBUNT report, one of the things, depending on the system you use, one of the things that could happen is maybe you have someone who typically gives every October. But if you ran that at this point in the year, it would show that they're lapsed because we haven't got to October yet. And so really looking at the current 12 months over the previous 12 months is very important to ensuring that you understand right when someone lapses. So let's go over a couple key stats real quick. So the average retention rate across most nonprofits is 45%. And so most nonprofits are losing 55% of their donors each year. Another interesting one is that for every 100 donors gained, typically 99 are lost due to attrition. This is really going to be the case, is that ultimately you are going to have all of your donors, if you're around long enough, your organization is around long enough, your donors will all be lost to attrition at some point. And so you really have to make sure you're continuing to focus on acquisition. But the easiest way to increase an organization's funds and fundraising is to make sure you're retaining as many donors as possible and being able to clearly identify who those donors are. So a couple key strategies around donor retention. Number one is ensure you're tracking retention trends over a rolling 12 months versus year to year. So I've already covered this, but I do believe this is very, very important, because the big thing is it allows you to see right when someone falls off. So you can see if you're tracking it month over month, 12 months over 12 months, then you're able to see right when you can send someone a very targeted message saying, hey, I noticed that you gave around this time last year and you gave $100. We would, here's everything we've done with that money. We would really, really love to continue to receive your support. And many times they've churned or lapsed, not because they meant to, but maybe they just didn't remember to give again. And your reminder at the right time, there may be a specific reason that they give every time this year. So 2, when asking for another donation, make sure you're sharing the impact of the first donation made and your vision for the next donation. So I basically just said that in the example I gave, but it is very important that you're sharing with people the proof of how valuable their donation is, even if it's a very small amount. If it's $10, but you had 10,000 people give you $10, you can do a whole lot with $100,000. And so maybe you you share with your donation and thousands of others, we were able to do X, X, and X. And next year, here's our goals. Here's what we want to accomplish. And all we're asking from you is $5 more this year to be able to accomplish that. And so lastly, when using email, make sure your strategy includes multiple emails instead of just one. So again, one of the things we see so often is that someone will send one email appeal and get really disappointed when they don't get results. The average open rate of emails is only 20%. And so if you think about your own inbox, I'm sure you can imagine all the times you've passed up emails or just deleted something because you didn't have time for it right then. It's very important to ensure that you're asking multiple times and sending multiple emails with reminders And lastly, I don't have this on there, but have a deadline, right? Say that we really need this donation in by X date to be able to do do what we're needing to do. So the third strategy here is upgrading. This is one of the things I get most excited about. It's a little bit unique to Kindful. We really focus on helping you understand not just most organizations have a really great view of their major donors when they upgrade. They understand it. They know that they gave more this year versus last year. They do a great job of acknowledging that gift and thanking them. But what doesn't necessarily always show up is your mid or low level donors that are giving a little bit more this year than last year. You know, when they got their appeal, instead of giving $100, they give $150. It's really important to make sure you recognize that. And across, if you have over 1,000 donors or so, it's very hard to do that manually. So you really want a technology who can help show you that information. And what it allows you to do is make sure that you're acknowledging and thanking that that in a very personal way. So what is an upgrade? It's I'm sure everyone understands. It's a donor that increases their giving from one year to the next. And so a couple things about upgrades that's interesting. We'll get into some recurring giving here because it's a really great way to upgrade people. And so at the top there, 88% of total donors raised comes from 12% of all donors. Monthly giving accounts for 17% of all online revenue. So again, recurring donations are very important. If you don't have a technology that makes it easy for someone to sign up to be a recurring donor, get that technology. It's really valuable. Because on average, a recurring donor going to the next stat gives 42% more per year than one-time donors. And then the average monthly donation is $27. So getting into recurring giving a little bit, and I'll go ahead and jump over here because it's the first thing we mention on our strategies, is to offer donors the options to donate on a recurring basis rather than all at once. So why this is so valuable is you can imagine many donors, and let's take major donors out of the conversation here, but many mid-level donors and below, it may be a little bit of a stretch for them to actually give a significant donation once a year. And so let's say that your first email you send someone, going back to a retention, let's say you found someone lapsed, and you say, hey, you know, we noticed you gave $100 this year. We'd love if you can continue to support our mission trips in Haiti, right, for example. And they don't respond. Maybe your next message could be, hey there, we would love to see, we have an option for you to give once a month and to give $10 a month versus that $100. Would you be open to that? And what's really interesting about that is $10 a month is maybe a lot easier for some individuals versus $100 per a one-time gift of $100. But what it allows you to do is now you have upgraded them from $100 per year to $120 per year. That's a 20% increase. If you could find a 20% increase across your whole donor database, I'm sure that would be your board and you would be really pleased with that. So number 2, use personalization to remind donors how much they gave last year and make it easy for them to give just a bit more this year. So again, using right technologies, using a really powerful email marketing platform, this can become really easy where you can use some personalization fields. You can pop in how much they gave last year and give them a suggested gift this year. Take the decision process out of it. Tell them what you need them to give to be able to hit your goal and show them how that's going to make such a huge impact on the population you serve. And you'll be really surprised what people are willing to do. 3, make sure you have a strategy to acknowledge all donors who upgrade. So again, I mentioned this just a few minutes ago, but it is really important that you understand that for some people, giving $50 more is a big deal to them. And taking the time to tell them thank you for increasing their donation, even if it's just via an email, can be very powerful to helping retain and keep that donor as you move forward. So I did, this is Technology Tuesday, so I do want to make sure that I'm actually showing you a little bit about Kindful's technology here. And so versus going into a full demo, it's really a little bit easier here just for me to show you a couple slides about how Kindful integrates with, or how Kindful makes donor management easier. So one is we have, this is our donor dashboard. When you log into Kindful, you're able to see all of our key stats about the donor life cycle right here at the top. We bring all this data right to the surface. So what you can see on the left, right there's contacts. So we're showing you all the contacts you currently have in your database. When you go over one bucket, you can see acquisition. So we're showing you how many new contacts you got this month. And then the bottom, you can see that 82, you've got 4 new contacts. You might have some work to do to get more people to actually be contacts in your database. But you took contacts and turned 82 of them into new donors in the past 12 months. So, and in this graph, you're seeing that you haven't got any new donors this month. So you may want to really put some focus there. Then retention and upgrades, we show those metrics, and you can dive right into them. You can see them right here. The 33 people who have upgraded in the last 12 months, you can dive in, jump into more information. The nice part about Kindful's technology is that you can see here where we're hovered over to 5. What this is, we ran this in June, but it was the last amount they gave was, or these 5 people, the last time they gave was in June of 2017. So what we're able to do is just jump right into those people by clicking on it, and we can see who all these individuals are. And what stands out to me right off the bat is you can see Olivia Jones, the 4th card over on the top row, is a major donor of ours. Right? She's given $7,000, $385 over her lifetime, and now she has lapsed. And so we want to immediately take Olivia and make sure our major donor manager gets her information and reaches right out. The other 4 individuals, maybe we just want to, we can select all of them. Oh, well, here's what we do is we actually want to narrow this down to people who are in the building fund, right? And so now we're able to send a very, very targeted message to these individuals specifically and say, hey, I know you were interested in the building fund last year. We would like for you to continue to give to that. And this just can provide very, very relevant messaging. And again, we would take Olivia and probably remove her from this, and we would specifically send Billy, Honest, and Richard an email specifically about the building fund and what they gave last year, and just trying to get them to give again this year. So that's what I have for just the donor life cycle. If you're interested in learning more about Kindful, again, just to recap, we are a donor management software that helps nonprofits organize their data and manage their donors better so nonprofits can make a greater impact. We also have a really awesome offer going on for August and September, and that's if you're looking for a donor management system and you come ask us about our trade-up offer, we will actually double the amount of contacts you get for the same price for the lifetime of you having Kindful. So it's a great way to be able to have more room in your database so you can bring all your contacts in and get the most value possible. So Jennifer, I don't know if there were any questions, but I'm happy to answer those if there were.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't have any questions in the queue, but if anyone who's on the line did have a question for Bradley about Kindful itself or any part of the presentation, go ahead and chat those over to us. One thing that just kind of my ears always perk up when I hear the word recurring, I feel like with Recur 360, which is one of our products, like that would be a great match for some of these organizations. Like, as you said, if it's already set up as a recurring gift, it's a lot easier for people. They don't really have to think about it. It just keeps on going. And so if you kind of could partner it with Recur 360, which does set up recurring payments, it can be in any amount. It can, email them if a credit card is, past due or expired. I think there's a lot of really great things that they could kind of work together. So I don't know if Kindful, the tool itself, has something integrated within it that can help with recurring, but I think that Recur 360 could be an awesome pairing with that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're probably absolutely right. And I do know that, Jennifer, a lot of your audience, focuses on QuickBooks and things like that. And Kindful does have a direct integration with QuickBooks. So if you're using a tool like Recur 360 and that data was going into QuickBooks, then it could sync directly over to Kindful, so you can have all the donor information in one place, and then your financial information in Recur 360 and QuickBooks.
Yeah, that would be great, I think, for a lot of these users. So, but I don't see any questions coming in. So if you had any last remarks before I take it back and close out.
I don't think. Lastly, just thank you for having us. We really enjoyed it, and we're happy to answer any questions anyone has.
Great, thank you so much. So this is being recorded, so if anyone wanted to go back and revisit, just head over to Out of the Box Technology /Tech-Tuesdays. You can check that out. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen again. I just wanted to comment on some of our upcoming webinars that we have. We've got T-Sheets in 2 weeks. We'll be doing a presentation with us. And then we have a couple in-house experts right here with Out of the Box that are going to talk about both Alpha 5 and then some tips and tricks for Outlook users. We're excited to have that going on in September. And then October brings in 2 other partners that we have, Veeam as well as Avalara. So we've got a full schedule heading into the fall. We hope you all join us. And other than that, thank you so much. If you have any questions, feel free to email me, visit outoftheboxtechnology.com, or reach out to Bradley. Everyone will get a follow-up email after this with our contact information. So if you did want more details, you can reach out to us directly. Thanks everyone for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you again soon.